The words hit like a freight train barreling through a quiet Kansas afternoon. Gay people go to hell, Daddy. That's what Pastor Jim says. 9-year-old Tommy's voice, small and certain, sliced the air in our cramped kitchen, his fork clattering against the plate of meatloaf I'd slaved over for an hour. I froze, the dish rag in my hand dripping soapy water onto the linoleum, my heart slamming against my ribs as if it might crack open right there. Across the table, Lucas, my partner of 2 years, the man who'd become my anchor in this storm of a life, went still, his green eyes locking onto mine with a mix of pain and quiet fury that said everything we weren't brave enough to voice yet. That was the moment everything shattered, the invisible fault line in our patchwork family finally giving way. Tommy, with his freckled cheeks and that mop of unruly brown hair just like his late mother's, wasn't being cruel. He was parroting the poison he'd swallowed at Sunday school, the kind of fear-laced gospel that had chased me out of my own childhood pews back in Wichita. But hearing it from him, from the boy I'd sworn to protect after Sarah's cancer took her 3 years ago, felt like betrayal wrapped in innocence. Lucas reached for my hand under the table, his calloused fingers, rough from years fixing engines at the local garage, squeezing hard enough to ground me, but I could see the fracture in his easy smile, the one that usually lit up rooms like a summer storm. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing a nod that felt like swallowing glass. "Hey, buddy," I said, my voice steady as a preacher's sermon, though inside I was unraveling. "Let's talk about that after dinner." "Okay." Past the mashed potatoes. But as Tommy shrugged and dug back in, oblivious to the bomb he'd dropped, I knew there'd be no after-dinner chat. This was the spark that would burn down the walls we'd built so carefully. Me, Daniel Hayes, 42-year-old widower and high school history teacher. Lucas Rivera, 38, the tattooed mechanic with a laugh like gravel and a heart softer than Kansas wheat. And Tommy, the 9-year-old glue or dynamite in our fragile triad. The days that followed were a slow bleed. Tommy's words hung in the air like smoke from a brush fire, seeping into every corner of our 2-story colonial on Elm Street in Lawrence, Kansas, the kind of all-American town where Friday night lights meant more than metaphors and church suppers were where secrets went to die. I'd moved us here after Sarah passed, chasing the ghost of normalcy in a place where the Jayhawks ruled and the Arkansas River whispered old stories. Lucas had followed a year later, drawn by a job at the Ford dealership and, if I'm honest, by the pull between us that started with a flat tire on a rainy night and bloomed into something neither of us could deny. That rainy night was etched in my soul. I'd been stranded on the shoulder of I-70, wipers slapping futilely against the downpour, when Lucas pulled up in his beat-up Chevy, toolbox in the bed. "Looks like you could use a knight in grease-stained armor," he'd quipped, his voice carrying that faint Texas drawl he'd never quite shaken. By the time he had my tire swapped, the rain had eased to a drizzle, and we were trading stories over lukewarm coffee at a diner off the highway. Me about losing Sarah, him about coming out in a family that still sent Christmas cards with Bible verses underlined in red. "Life's too short for hiding," he'd said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "And damn if you don't look like you need someone to remind you of that." We'd taken it slow, as men like us do in places like this. Stolen kisses in the garage, weekend hikes in the Flint Hills where no one could judge. When I finally told Tommy about Lucas, not as a friend, but as the man I loved, the kid had hugged me tight, his small arms fierce. "Like in those movies with the uncles who live together?" he'd asked. And I'd laughed, relief flooding me like the river after spring thaw. For a year, it worked. Family game nights with Monopoly marathons, Lucas teaching Tommy to bait a hook at Clinton Lake. Me watching them from the shore with a beer in hand, thinking maybe we'd cracked the code on second chances. But Pastor Jim's sermons had wormed their way in, subtle at first. Tommy's Sunday school class at First Baptist, the one Sarah and I had picked for its family values, started emphasizing God's plan for marriage with pictures of smiling mommies and daddies. I'd let it slide, too buried in lesson plans on the Dust Bowl and grading essays on the civil rights movement ironic, given how I was failing my own at home. Lucas noticed, though. Kids picking up static. Dan. He'd murmur over late-night whiskey on the porch swing, his head on my shoulder. We gotta talk to him before it sticks. I knew he was right, but fear is a hell of a silencer. What if Tommy turned away? What if the town whispered, and I lost my job? Or worse, custody battles with Sarah's Bible-thumping parents who'd always eyed me sideways? They lived in Topeka, close enough to swoop in if things soured. Their lawyer already sniffing around after the divorce I'd filed quietly before Sarah's diagnosis worsened. Protect the family, I told myself, shoving the doubts down like bad coffee. But protection, I was learning, wasn't about silence. It was about facing the fire. The first crack came a week after the dinner bomb, during a backyard barbecue we'd thrown to shake off the tension. Hamburgers on the grill, neighbors milling about with plastic cups of Bud Light. Tommy was chasing fireflies with the Andersons' girl next door, his laughter carrying on the humid breeze, when he spotted Lucas and me sharing a quick, chaste kiss by the cooler. Time slowed. His face crumpled, not in anger, but confusion laced with that Sunday school certainty. "Daddy, don't," he whispered, tugging at my jeans. "Pastor says that's a sin. You'll go to hell too." The neighbors didn't hear, thank God, but Lucas did. His jaw tightened, that easygoing facade cracking like dry earth. He excused himself to the garage, the screen door slapping shut behind him. I knelt to Tommy's level, my knees protesting on the grass. "Hey, champ. Love isn't a sin. It's what God put in our hearts, yours, mine, Lucas's." Remember how we talked about that? But his eyes, wide and shadowed, said the words weren't landing. Pastor Jim showed us pictures. Men like that, they burn. He burst into tears then, burying his face in my shirt, and I held him as the party buzzed on, oblivious. That night, Lucas packed a bag. Not dramatically, no slammed doors or shouted accusations, but with the quiet resolve of a man who'd been burned before. We sat on the edge of the bed, Tommy asleep down the hall, the ceiling fan whirring like a guilty conscience. "I can't do this halfway, Dan," Lucas said, his voice low, folding a flannel shirt with hands that trembled just a bit. "Hiding in plain sight, waiting for the kid to wake up one day and decide I'm the devil. I love you, God. Do I love you? But I won't be the secret that poisons him." "It's not like that," I pleaded, grabbing his wrist, feeling the pulse there like a lifeline. Tommy's just confused. "Give me time to fix it." But even as I said it, I heard the lie. Time hadn't fixed Sarah's illness. It hadn't fixed the empty ache in my chest. Lucas cupped my face, his thumb brushing my cheek, and for a moment, we were back on that rainy highway, possibilities stretching out like endless blacktop. Fixing it means choosing us, all of us, or letting go. He kissed me then, slow and deep, tasting of regret and rain, before shouldering his duffel and walking out into the dark. He crashed at his buddy Marco's apartment above the garage, the one with the leaky roof and posters of old muscle cars peeling at the edges. I drove by twice that week, engine idling, but never went in. Instead, I doubled down on damage control, extra story time with Tommy, reading books about diverse families I'd ordered online. Heather has 2 mommies, and Tango makes 3, slipping them into our routine like contraband. See, buddy, penguins love who they love, and it's okay. He'd listen, head tilted, but the questions came sharper. What if God doesn't like penguins either? School became my refuge, the hallways echoing with the chaos of adolescents wrestling their own identities. I taught them about Stonewall, Harvey Milk, the quiet revolutions that shaped America, but my voice cracked on the days when Lucas's truck wasn't in the driveway. Whispers started, small-town radar picking up the static. My colleague, Mrs. Hargrove, cornered me in the staff lounge. Heard your man stepped out. Daniel. You okay? I nodded, forcing a grin. Just a rough patch, but inside. Betrayal nod, not at Lucas for leaving, but at myself for letting it get this far. The real storm hit on a Friday in October, leaves skittering across campus like fleeing secrets. Tommy's school called a playground scuffle. He'd shoved Billy Jenkins, the preacher's kid, after Billy taunted him about having 2 daddies like a freak show. Tommy, fists balled, had yelled back, "My daddy's not going to hell, he's a hero," but the words twisted in the retelling. And by pickup time, the principal was waiting with Sarah's parents in tow, their faces carved from granite. Daniel, Evelyn, Sarah's mom, said, her voice honey over venom, "We've been worried. Tommy's acting out because of influences." Her husband, Earl, nodded, clutching his Bible like a shield. The boys confused. Needs stability. Real family. Tommy clung to my leg, silent, his backpack dangling like an anchor. I knelt again, whispering, "It's okay, champ. Daddy's got you." But as we drove home, their words echoed, influences. As if love was a contaminant. That night, I called Lucas. No preamble. "Come over. Please." He arrived at dusk. Flannel unbuttoned over a faded KUT. His hair tousled from the wind. Tommy was in his room, sketching superheroes with capes made of rainbows. I'd caught him hiding the colors earlier, ashamed. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one scarred from 1,000 meals, and I spilled it all, the fight, the grandparents' ambush, the fear that one wrong move would rip us apart. Lucas listened, then stood, pulling Tommy down to join us. "Hey, little man," he said, no trace of hurt in his tone. "Your dad tells me you've been carrying a heavy load. Wanna tell me about it?" Tommy hesitated, eyes flicking to me for permission. Then the dam broke. "I don't want you to burn, Lucas. But I love you. Like Daddy does." The words hung, raw and real, and Lucas, strong, unbreakable Lucas, teared up, pulling the boy into a hug. "I love you too, kiddo. And hell, that's just stories scared people tell to keep good ones in line." We talked then, the 3 of us, late into the night. Not with sermons or books, but stories, mine of hiding crushes in high school lockers, Lucas's of dancing at his first Pride in Austin under Texas stars, Tommy's halting confessions of feeling different because his friends had moms who baked cookies, not dads who fixed bikes. It wasn't fixed in one night, no magic wand, but the air shifted, like the first breath after a tornado passes. The betrayal came not from within, but from without. Pastor Jim, hearing whispers, called a family meeting at the church midweek, inviting Sarah's parents and half the congregation. I got the voicemail while subbing a class. "Daniel, let's pray this through." For Tommy's soul, my blood ran cold. This was the climax I dreaded, the town's judgment laid bare, the kind that had driven friends underground or out of state altogether. I showed up anyway, Lucas at my side, Tommy with my sister as backup. The fellowship hall smelled of stale coffee and polished pews, faces turning like sunflowers to the light or the lightning rod. Pastor Jim, mid-50s with a comb-over and a voice like rolling thunder, fixed me with eyes meant to pierce. "Brother Daniel, we've heard troubling things. Living in sin, exposing a child to perversion. Repent, and God's grace abounds." The room murmured assent, Evelyn dabbing her eyes theatrically. But then Tommy, my brave, broken-hearted boy, slipped from the back pew, marching up the aisle with the fire of 9 years' worth of love. "Stop it!" he shouted, voice cracking but clear. "Lucas isn't bad. He's family. You say hell? But Daddy says hell is being alone. And I won't let you make us alone." Silence crashed like a wave. Eyes widened. Whispers died. Lucas squeezed my hand, his grip iron. I stepped forward, heart pounding, and laid it bare. "Tommy's right. Love isn't sin, it's salvation. And if that's not your gospel, maybe it's time I found a new pew." We walked out then, the three of us, heads high, the door swinging shut on judgment's echo. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Sarah's parents cut ties, their final email a barrage of verses and veiled threats of legal action. But Tommy's stand rippled outward. Billy Jenkins apologized on the playground, his own dad muttering about kids these days being wiser. Lucas moved back in, our nights reclaiming the intimacy we'd lost. Slow dances in the living room to Springsteen, his body fitting mine like it was always meant to. Winter came gentle that year, snow blanketing Lawrence in hush. We found a new church, Unitarian, welcoming, with rainbow flags fluttering like promises. Tommy joined a scout troop led by a lesbian couple, earning his first badge in kindness. And me, I proposed to Lucas on Clinton Lake at dawn. Ring simple silver, words simpler still. "Build this life with me." "All of it." He said yes, tears freezing on his lashes. "Always, Dan. Hearts like ours, they don't break, they bend." In the end, it wasn't perfection, but humanity, flawed, fierce, forgiven. Tommy grew, his questions evolving from fear to curiosity, his hugs encompassing us both. We weren't the poster family for some glossy magazine, but in the quiet American heartland, under wide Kansas skies, we were whole. Hearts changed, not by thunder, but by the steady rain of truth. And in that, we found our heaven. The spring after the church walkout brought tulips pushing through the thawed earth like tentative fingers, mirroring the fragile hope sprouting in our home. Tommy turned 10 in April. His birthday party a riot of water balloons and cake smeared across cheeks. Lucas manning the grill with an apron that read, "Kiss the cook," in ironic script. I watched from the porch steps, a cold seltzer sweating in my hand, marveling at how far we'd come from that meatloaf dinner. The neighbors had thawed too, Mrs. Anderson even baked us lemon bars, whispering, "Proud of you boys," as if we'd run a marathon. Not just survived a small-town inquisition. But peace, I've learned, is America's cruelest tease. It lulls you with barbecues and blooming dogwoods, only to yank the rug with a phone call at 2 a.m. That call came from Earl, Sarah's father, his voice gravel rough from years of pipe smoke and unspoken grudges. Daniel, we're filing for custody. Tommy needs real family, not this experiment. The line went dead before I could retort, leaving me staring at the darkened hallway, Lucas stirring beside me, his arm draping heavy over my waist. Custody. The word clawed at me, dredging up memories of Sarah's final days, her hand frail in mine, begging, "Promise you'll keep him safe, Dan." No matter what, I nodded, throat tight, as monitors beeped her away. Now, her parents, vultures in cardigans, were circling, armed with affidavits from Pastor Jim and character witnesses who'd swear on stacks of Bibles that my lifestyle endangered their grandson. Betrayal stung deepest from Evelyn, who'd held Tommy at his baptism, cooed over his first steps. How could love twist into weapon? Lucas woke fully then, pulling me close, his breath warm against my neck. "We'll fight," he murmured, no question in it. "You're his dad." End of story. But as dawn crept in, painting the walls gold, doubt gnawed. Lawyering up meant dredging our lives into court. My coming out post-Sarah. Lucas's past arrests for peaceful protests at Austin Prides. The unstable label they'd slap on our blended home. Tommy, sensing the shift, started shadowing me more. His questions laced with worry. "Grandma and Grandpa mad 'cause of Lucas?" I'd ruffle his hair, lie through my teeth. "Nah, just grown-up stuff." We hired Rebecca Klein, a Topeka attorney with a reputation for family law miracles and a rainbow pin on her lapel. Her office overlooked the Capitol dome, a reminder that battles for hearts often started in marble halls. "Kansas is blue on paper," she said, flipping through files, "but red in the veins. We'll need everything: character refs, therapist notes, proof of stability." Stability. I almost laughed. Our life was a Jenga tower, solid, but one pull and it tumbled. The hearings dragged into summer, humid courtrooms thick with tension. First appearance. Tommy sat between us, swinging his legs, oblivious to the undercurrents. Earl and Evelyn took the stand, Evelyn dabbing tears as she recounted Sarah's traditional dreams, Earl booming about moral decay. "The boy's exposed to sin daily," he thundered. "Homosexuality, it's a choice, and Daniel chose wrong." The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, raised an eyebrow but let it stand. My turn came, voice steady as I described diaper changes, school plays, the nights I'd rock Tommy through nightmares of losing his mom. "Love isn't a choice," I said, meeting Evelyn's eyes. "It's a promise," Lucas testified last, his drawl softening the room like balm. "I ain't perfect, Your Honor. Grew up thinking love like mine was a curse. But Daniel, he showed me grace. And Tommy, he's the light. I'd lay down my life before I'd let anyone dim that." Juries melt for stories like his, Rebecca whispered later. But as we filed out, a reporter from the Lawrence Journal World lingered, notepad poised. "Comment on the custody battle, Mr. Hayes." Flashbulbs popped, turning our private war public. By evening, headlines screamed, "Gay dad fights Bible Belt in-laws for son." The betrayal deepened when I traced the leak. Billy Jenkins's dad, the deacon who'd palmed me a prayer pamphlet months back. He'd twisted Tommy's playground defense into ammunition, feeding the press for the greater good. Rage boiled, but Lucas cooled it with a drive to the river, tires crunching gravel as we parked under cottonwoods. They're scared, Dan, of what we represent, happy, whole, unashamed. He kissed me there, fierce and unyielding, hands framing my face. But we ain't backing down. Tommy, though, bore the brunt. School taunts escalated, fag dad's kid, and he withdrew, trading fireflies for fort building in his room. One night, finding him curled under blankets, I sat on the edge. "What's eating you, champ?" He peeked out, eyes red-rimmed. "What if I lose you, or Lucas? Grandma says it's my fault for liking the Penguins." My chest caved. I gathered him up, rocking like I had at 3. "Never your fault. And you won't lose us. We're a Team Hayes Rivera squad. Remember, to mend him, we started truth nights. No filters. Just us 3 on the living room rug, sharing fears over popcorn." Lucas confessed his first heartbreak, a high school beau who bailed when coming out loomed. I admitted the guilt of falling for him while Sarah faded. Tommy, hesitant, revealed a drawing, 3 stick figures holding hands under a rainbow arch labeled Heaven. "See, God likes us," we cried then, laughter bubbling through, the kind that stitches wounds. Climax crested in late August. Final hearing under fluorescent glare. Rebecca called an expert witness, a child psychologist who'd evaluated Tommy, her report glowing. The boy thrives in a nurturing, dual-parent home. Removing him would cause irreparable harm. But Earl's lawyer countered with a bombshell. A sworn statement from my ex-colleague, Hargrove, claiming I'd proselytized gay agenda in class, endangering students. Betrayal twice over. She'd smiled at our barbecues, then sold me out for a pat on the back from the school board. The courtroom spun. Lucas's hand found mine under the table, anchoring. Tommy, in the gallery with Rebecca's paralegal, caught my eye and mouthed, "Team." I rose for rebuttal, voice raw. "I've taught history, truths America fought to face. Like how love won rights at Stonewall, or how families like mine built this nation. If that's a sin, then judge me guilty. But don't punish my son for it." The judge recessed, hours ticking like heartbeats. When she returned, her gavel fell soft. "Custody remains with Mr. Hayes. Visitation for grandparents. Supervised. This court values love over labels." Cheers erupted, Rebecca's whoop, Lucas's exhale. But Tommy's hug hit hardest, small body slamming into mine. "We won. Daddy." Outside, Evelyn approached, face ashen. We thought we were saving him." I nodded, weary. "You raised Sarah strong. Now raise your hearts bigger." She touched Tommy's hair, a ghost of a smile. "Maybe we will." Fall foliage turned fiery as we healed. Lucas and I married in October, a backyard affair with hay bales and harvest moon. Tommy ring-bearer in a tiny bow tie. Vows exchanged under the oak Sarah planted. In all weathers, for all our days, hearts, once fractured, mended not seamlessly, but beautifully scarred, testimony to the human bend toward light. Winter's grip loosened into a tentative spring the year Tommy hit 11. But the scars from the custody war lingered like frostbite's ache. We'd won the legal battle, but the emotional front lines shifted. Tommy's questions evolving from fear to fierce protectiveness. Lucas and I navigating the minefield of public eyes in a town that both embraced and eyed us warily. The journal world ran a follow-up, Local Families Triumph, Love Over Legacy. But beneath the praise, comment sections festered with anonymous venom, sick agenda, poor kid's future ruined. I threw myself into teaching, expanding my curriculum with guest speakers, a trans activist from Kansas City, a vet sharing DADT repeal stories to armor my students against the world's sharp edges. Lucas, ever the fixer, took night classes at community college, chasing an associate's in auto tech, his greasy hands now smudged with textbook margins. Gonna open my own shop, he'd say, dreams sparking over dinner. Rivera and Hayes Repairs, family business. Tommy beamed, sketching logos with wrenches shaped like hearts. Yet betrayal's shadow loomed anew, this time from within. My sister, Laura, Tommy's blood aunt, the one who'd babysat through the hearings, started pulling back. Texts went unanswered, visits canceled with flimsy excuses. When she finally showed at Easter brunch, her face was drawn, clutching a cross necklace like a talisman. Dan, I love you, but the church group says you're leading Tommy astray. And after what Mom and Dad went through with Sarah, her voice trailed, eyes avoiding mine. The words landed like a sucker punch. Laura, who'd held my hand at Sarah's funeral, sung lullabies to Tommy as a baby, now siding with the echo chamber? It's not about you, she insisted, voice cracking. It's the boy. What if he grows up confused? Like you were, confusion. As if my youth, lying to mirrors, burying crushes under football pads, wasn't confusion enough. Lucas, clearing plates with forced calm, muttered, family's supposed to lift, not lecture. But she left with a stiff hug, the rift widening like a Kansas creek in flood. Tommy sensed it, of course. Kids are divining rods for discord. That night, he cornered me in the hallway, arms crossed like a tiny sentinel. Aunt Laura thinks we're bad. Huh? Like Grandma. I knelt, pulling him close, his heartbeat syncing with mine. No. Champ. She loves us, just scared of different. Like how you were with the penguins. He nodded, but doubt lingered in his frown. To counter, we doubled down on rituals. Saturday pancakes with Lucas's secret blueberry swirl. Sunday drives to Lawrence's Pride Center for story hours where Tommy devoured tales of kings marrying knights. Romance, amid the strain, became our rebellion. Lucas and I stole away to a cabin in the Ozarks, leaving Tommy with Rebecca's family, trusted allies now. The drive wound through hills dotted with dogwood, radio crooning Johnny Cash's Ring of Fire. At the lake, under a sky bruised purple, we made love on a quilt spread over pine needles, bodies urgent and unhurried. You're my fire, Dan, he whispered after, fingers tracing the tattoos on his chest, a compass rose for direction lost and found. Burns, but damn if it don't warm. Back home, conflict escalated when Laura filed a motion, not for custody, but grandparental rights expansion, citing moral concerns. Court again, this time sweltering June, fans whirring futilely. Her testimony gutted me. I want time with Tommy, away from the influence. Daniel's choices. They're not what Sarah envisioned. Choices. As if loving Lucas was a whim, not the truest part of me. Lucas, in the pew, gripped the wood till his knuckles blanched, but held silent, his restraint a gift, not weakness. My rebuttal was fire-tempered steel. Laura, You were there when Sarah died. She wanted Tommy happy, not hemmed in by fear. My choices built this home, Lucas tucking him in, me cheering his goals. That's legacy. The judge, same silver-haired arbiter, ruled swiftly, limited visits, family counseling mandatory. Laura's face crumpled as she left, whispering, "I'm sorry, but the damage rooted deep." Tommy's response was pure poetry. He wrote her a letter, crayon scrawls on construction paper. "Aunt Laura, family's like a puzzle. Lucas fits. Don't throw pieces away. Love, Tommy." She visited after, tentative, bringing puzzles instead of pamphlets. Slowly, bridges rebuilt, her apologies laced with questions. "How do you do it? Love so bold." Lucas, gracious, shared his story over coffee, and I saw the thaw humanity's slow melt. But the true climax brewed in July, heat wave shimmering the air like a fever dream. Tommy's summer camp, Lutheran Run, a concession to neutrality, erupted in scandal. A counselor, fresh from seminary, pulled him aside after lights-out tales of Adam and Steve. Warning, your daddy's way leads to darkness. Pray for change. Tommy, emboldened by our truths, reported it, but the director, Pastor Jim's cousin, suspended the counselor with a wink. "Just guidance, son." Word spread like prairie fire. I marched to the camp office, Lucas in tow, demanding accountability. "This is indoctrination, not summer fun." The director smirked. "God's word over man's." Tommy, overhearing from the porch, burst in. "God's word is love. You said so in chapel." His voice, high and unyielding, silenced the room. Parents nodded, murmurs rising, alliances shifting like sand. The fallout? Camp closed early, lawsuits whispered, and our family became reluctant poster children again. National outlets picked it up. Kansas kid calls out camp bigotry. And suddenly, offers poured in, book deals, speaking gigs at Heartland Prides. We demurred, choosing quiet over spotlight, but the validation healed something primal. As leaves turned, romance deepened into ritual. Lucas's shop opened, a squat brick building on Massachusetts Street, sign gleaming, Rivera and Hayes. We fix hearts too. Tommy's first oil change became a rite, his hands black as we high-fived under the hood. Laura joined us for Thanksgiving, her cross necklace tucked away, laughter genuine over turkey. Betrayal's sting faded, replaced by resilience's glow. Hearts, we'd learned, weren't changed by decrees, but by daring to show the cracks. In America's heart, where winds whipped wild, we stood bent, but unbroken. By Tommy's 12th birthday, the rhythm of our life in Lawrence had settled into a hard-won groove, like an old vinyl record skipping less with each play. The shop thrived, Lucas elbow-deep in transmissions by day, me grading papers under the Royals game on TV at night, Tommy shuttling between soccer practice and chess club with the easy grace of a kid who'd stared down dragons. We'd even hosted a neighborhood block party, rainbow flags fluttering discreetly beside American ones, and no one batted an eye. Or so I thought. The new betrayal slithered in subtly, via an email from an old college buddy, Nate, who'd relocated to town for a coaching gig at the high school. We'd bonded over keggers and Kierkegaard at KU. Him the straight arrow jock, me the brooding lit major. Post Sarah, he'd been a lifeline, beers at the Foxhole, venting sessions where he never judged my grief or my growing affection for men. When Lucas entered the picture, Nate clapped me on the back. "Happy looks good on you, Hayes." Now, his message glowed innocuous. "Dinner soon? Miss our talks." We met at a dive on Iowa Street, neon buzzing open like a false promise. Nate slid into the booth, broader than memory, wedding ring glinting. "Congrats on the wedding, man. Saw the pics, y'all clean up nice." Small talk flowed, his twins, my custody win until the third round, when his eyes hardened. "Heard about the camp thing. Bold move. But Dan, you ever worry about Tommy? Kids are sponges. What if this life rubs off wrong?" The air thickened. I set my pint down, foam sloshing. "Rubs off? Nate, he's thriving. Straight A's. Friends who don't care." He leaned in, voice dropping. "I'm just saying, as a dad now, I get the protectiveness. Society's shifting, but deep down, folks still whisper. And with your in-laws circling." He trailed off, but the implication hung back out, "for the kids' sake." Betrayal, not in malice, but misplaced concern, the kind that erodes from within. I left early, gut churning, and confessed to Lucas over midnight tacos. He chewed slow, eyes thoughtful. Friends like that, they're anchors or anchors. Cut the chain if it drags. But doubt seeded. What if Nate was right? What if our openness scarred Tommy invisibly? The next day, I overcompensated, extra dad-son dates, fishing at the lake, probing gently. "You good, bud? School okay?" He rolled his eyes, casting his line. "Dad, chill. I got this. Besides, Coach Nate says hi, thinks you're a legend." Nate. Of course. The conflict simmered when he volunteered for Tommy's soccer team. All bro hugs and high fives, but sidelong glances at Lucas like he was a puzzle piece that didn't fit. At a game, rain-slicked field, Tommy scored the equalizer, and Nate lifted him high, then, in the huddle, murmured loud enough for me to hear, "That's my boy. Keep it straight." Yeah. Laughter rippled, but Tommy's face fell, glancing my way. Enough. Post-game, I cornered Nate in the parking lot, mist beating on our jackets. "What the hell, man? Tommy's not your project." He flushed, defensive. "Joking, Dan. Lighten up. But seriously, you're raising him. Different. In this town, you could toughen him up, or break him, as if our love was the hammer." I walked away, friendship severed like a bad weld, but the wound festered. Lucas, sensing my withdrawal, planned a surprise, a road trip to Chicago, pride's afterglow still humming. The windy city swallowed us whole, towers scraping clouds, Lake Michigan's endless blue. Tommy gawked at the bean, Lucas and I holding hands unapologetic amid the throng. At a drag brunch in Boys Town, feathers and glitter exploding, Tommy giggled through mimosas, virgin for him, declaring, "This is heaven." Evenings, we wandered Navy Pier, Ferris wheel lights dancing on water, Lucas pulling me close. "See, world's bigger than whispers." Our lovemaking in the hotel suite was tender, exploratory, fingers mapping scars, breaths sinking like waves. "You're my compass," I whispered, and he smiled, that Texas twinkle. Pointing true north, back in Kansas, climax ignited at Tommy's school, a family heritage night where kids shared trees and tales. Tommy, proud, presented ours. Branches for Sarah's artist mom. My teacher dad. Lucas's mechanic lineage. Leaves in rainbow hues for love's colors. Classmates ood. But a parent, Nate's wife. I'd learn. Complain to the principal. Inappropriate for public school. By morning, I was summoned. Accused of activism on school time. The office reeked of bureaucracy. Principal fidgeting. Daniel, we value diversity, but optics. As if Tommy's truth was a liability. I fired back. This is education, real history, not sanitized. Lucas arrived. Tommy in tow. His presence a wall of quiet strength. Our family's heritage is resilience, he said. Teach that, or teach nothing. Tommy chimed. I drew it myself. It's me. The standoff drew the superintendent, a burly ex-coach with a soft spot for underdogs. He reviewed the project, nodded. Stays. And added to the hall. Bravery deserves display. Victory small, but seismic. Nate resigned from coaching that week. An email apology. Overstepped. Sorry, brother. Forgiveness? Maybe later. For now, space. Fall deepened our bonds. Tommy joined a GSA club, budding ally at 12. Laura, fully thawed, hosted game nights, her twins quizzing Lucas on carburetors. Romance for us bloomed domestic. Slow mornings in bed, coffee steaming, plans for adoption expanding our trio. Betrayal's echo faded, replaced by echoes of laughter. In America's mosaic, we'd claimed our tile vibrant, unyielding. Hearts, once singed, now burned steady, illuminating the path. As Tommy edged toward 13, the Kansas plains seemed to exhale, winds carrying whispers of change rather than warnings. Our home on Elm Street, once a bunker, became a beacon, holiday lights strung with pride flags. The shop's bay doors opened for community fix-it clinics where single moms learned oil changes and elders got free tune-ups. Lucas's diploma framed above his workbench. My tenure at the high school secured with a department head nod. We'd weathered the storms, emerging not unscathed, but sculpted stronger lines, deeper colors. Yet no story ends without its final twist. A quiet betrayal born of complacency. It arrived in spring, disguised as opportunity. A job offer for me at a progressive charter in Denver. Double salary, urban pulse. Fresh start, the email tempted. For families like yours. Lucas pored over it at breakfast. Tommy munching cereal oblivious. Big city, Dan. Prides every weekend. No side eyes. His eyes sparkled. But beneath lurked the unspoken. Lawrence had bruised us. Escape tempted. I wrestled alone, pacing the river path where willows wept into the current. Denver meant reinvention, no custody ghosts, no Nate echoes, but it meant uprooting Tommy's roots, his team, his GSA friends, the grave where Sarah rested under wildflowers. Betrayal to her memory, or to our future? Nights. Lucas sensed my turmoil, his touches turning urgent, bodies colliding in a bid to anchor. Wherever you go, I'm there, he'd murmur, sweat-slick skin against mine. But choose us whole. Tommy cracked the code first, cornering me post-soccer. Denver? You leaving? His voice wobbled, braces glinting. I pulled him to a bench, truth spilling, thinking. For better schools, adventures, he kicked dirt, fierce. This is home. Lucas fixed the swing set. You taught me to swim here. Grandma visits now. Evelyn, don't run 'cause it's hard. Wisdom from a kid who'd once feared hellfire. I hugged him tight, 13 going on timeless. The climax unfolded not in court or confrontation, but counsel, a family summit on the porch swing, creaking under our weight. Lucas voiced dreams of city lights. Tommy clung to plain's expanse. I mediated with a heart torn like parchment. What if we vote? Tommy suggested. Democratic spark. Lucas, Denver. Tommy, stay. Me, the tiebreaker. Hours blurred into dusk. Fireflies winking like allies. I thought of Sarah's laugh echoing in these walls. Lucas's hand steady in mine through trials. Tommy's rainbow drawings papering the fridge. Stay, I said finally, voice thick. This is our story written here, Lucas exhaled, pulling us close. Then we make it epic right where we are. Tears mixed with grins. The swing swaying like a cradle. Resolution rippled outward. I turned down Denver, channeling energy into local advocacy, a Lawrence chapter for PFLAG. Workshops blending history with heart. Evelyn, softened by time and Tommy's letters, joined a book club on Queer Lit. Her first confession over coffee. I was wrong. Sarah would have loved this. Nate, a nod at the grocery. Thaw tentative. Hearts changed, inch by inch. Summer solstice. We celebrated with a vow renewal under the oak. Tommy officiating in a thrift store suit. Do you, Daniel Hayes, promise to love Lucas Rivera in sickness, health, and Kansas twisters? Laughter bubbled. Rings exchanged anew. That night, under stars thick as promises, Lucas and I danced slow on the lawn, Tommy asleep inside. Our heaven, he whispered, forehead to mine. Years folded forward. Tommy to high school. Out as bi at 16 with our quiet roar of support. Lucas's shop franchising. Mentoring queer apprentices. Me penning a memoir. Plains of the Heart. Chapters on betrayal's bite and love's bomb. Tragedies came. Evelyn's passing. Gentle. With amends whispered. But joys outweighed. Tommy's college acceptance to KU. His wedding to a poet under that same oak. In America's vast tapestry, our thread wove humanistic hue. Dramatic falls, emotional climbs, romantic fires, all underscoring that protection isn't shielding from pain, but arming with truth. From a 9-year-old's hellfire words to a family's healed horizon, we proved hearts bend, but rarely break. And in the bending, they touch grace.